All right, here we are. Thanks for your patience. I see a lot of good comments here on Facebook. Let me see if I can find them here. Okay, well, I'll wait on Instagram to come back. Oh, somebody's asking about worm. That's a good question. I might mention that. Okay, Nick uses his in his grass. All right, here we go. Everybody's coming back. Okay, thanks, guys. My brother used it to run his crop production. Very good. Okay, we're getting everybody back. Give me a second here. Yep, manure is, get it without even doing any work. I'm sweating, guys. It's hot. All right, let's see who's here for me. All right, guys, we're getting back here. Okay, I'm still waiting for Doc. Oh, there he is. Okay. Don't know why I'm sweating. All right, there you are. Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Coming back, I should say. All right, so the last thing we talked about was, and I'm going to learn something because I've never heard that term before. I should say learn something else. Fish effluent. What is that?
I think of fish effluent just sort of the waste with the body fluid and miscellaneous visceral parts of the fish. Whoever asked you that question can maybe clarify that, but was the question concerning fish
Yes, I
effluent
think
and
using
compost?
fish effluent for composting.
You can, and a lot of people actually use it in making
Okay.
compost tea as well on that, but that's a different subject, I guess. But yeah, now
Okay.
you can,
So
yeah.
is it the same process? You
The
basically get
effluent,
the fish in.
the effluent
No,
is,
go ahead. I don't know anything. I'm
I'm
just
sorry.
asking questions. Go ahead and tell me.
Uh, I was just going to add that the effluent, of course, would add to the moisture
Okay.
content in
All
itself.
right. So that is, I guess, another quote unquote ingredient, for want of a better word. It's another ingredient we can use to help make compost. Okay. Let's see. And somebody mentioned
Mhm.
about worms. Do we need to add worms or does it create its own worms? I'm trying to see where my message is on Facebook here. How do worms come into the whole composting process?
Now, first, I guess I should clarify uh, the adding the fish parts and effluent on that. That is going to create an odor. So, most people that don't do this regularly and in a systematic way should avoid adding meat parts or bones or things
Okay.
like even the fish effluent. Uh, if they if they are prepared to cover things up well
Mm,
to avoid the odor and to avoid attracting rodents on that. But uh, if everyone is aware of that, sure they can use the fish effluent, but you do have to be aware of the of how to
okay.
prevent
All right. So
attracting
you have to be
rodents
very
on
careful.
that.
Some Whitney Dorma mentioned vermiculture. Can you talk a little? Okay, can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, yeah. Which is vermicomposting
Okay.
is just using the composting worms instead of regular compost, and that's fairly popular even in Jamaica. From when I was speaking with the with Marsha and the Crofts Hill Farmers Group, that there were
Mm-hmm.
people that knew about
Yeah.
vermicomposting there. And there's one particular species of red composting worm from uh, that's that's purchased from California mostly. That is the
Okay.
one of the chief composting worms. Not every worm is, a composting worm. You can't throw in a fishing worm, a lumbricus, and expect it to do much composting. That the differences are quite a few. The final product is also different because the worm compost is actually worm castings. Throw a worm feces and other junk from the body waste of the worms. It's much richer in organic material, and people that use it like it a lot better than normal compost. On it, there's more trouble to get adequate amounts of that because um, you have to raise livestock being your worms, and you have to keep them comfortable. That they aren't attracted to heat. So the good thing is you're not having to go up in temperature because they like it at room temperature. They like it around 25 centigrade on that. In fact, you go much higher, they will stop eating. You go much higher, you will kill them. So you have that, and they're really good at getting rid of food waste. But then a lot of times, depending on how you feed them, you have to pre-compost your food waste. Or if you want to give them a little bits of manure, you definitely have to pre-compost that so that they don't kill the worms. If you just throw in chunks of non-pre-composted food waste in general, the microorganisms I was talking about in regular composting, the fungi and the bacteria, they will come in first, and they are going to heat things up. And so then they will kill the worms or drive them away. So special habitat, it's not basically a lot of pile. You need to have worms in one area. You need to have bedding material underneath it. Shredded paper is great for bedding material, but so are other things. Shredded leaves. You have to have the worms, you have to have the bedding material, you have to have the feedstock, and they like a moisture level that's much higher, more like 80% instead of 50%. And you have to come in and check and make sure that everything is right, and you don't want to overfeed them or they'll stop eating. So it's best if they stay a little hungry, but you do want to feed them regularly, and then you can harvest the castings as necessary, or remove a lot of the worms into a new bed after the old bed is mostly consumed, because it's going to get full of water, which will have to be, or liquid, which will have to be drained. And that liquid, by the way, is a great compost tea as well. You have to get rid of the liquid. You'll have to replenish the bedding material, which not only is it a bedding material, but it eventually becomes food as well. It's the carbon part of the food source on that. And the scale of how you grow worms. You can grow worms in bins, or you can grow worms in great big rows, windrows. It almost starts looking superficially like a normal composting apparatus, except that it has worms all through it. You have to be cognizant of where the worms are. You have to be cognizant of how to harvest the worms and how to feed the worms. If you want them to go to an area that has, and so that they're not drowning in their own waste, you put food in a clean area, they'll go to that. If you want to harvest the worms completely, then you could shine a light. They don't like light. They will migrate away from the light. You can collect them that way.
So vermiculture is like a whole different process. I think that's beyond my scope right now. All right. So somebody said, would you recommend, I should say somebody asked, would you recommend using chicken to make compost? I don't know. Turf1876. Can you clarify that question? Just using chicken. I don't know if you're talking about how you're going to use a chicken. So maybe if you clarify that, that would be awesome. Did I lose connection? Oh, we lost Bill. Oh no. We lost Bill. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Turf187. If you can clarify when you say using chicken, exactly what you're talking about there. And I'll ask Bill as soon as he jumps back in here. Oh, here's a note. It says at Case we use one that is less labor intensive that we don't have to turn it as crop area and or pasture every year or take an age of it to Denby and it's sold out very quickly. Oh, so Whitney Dorma would be a nice resource to you guys to get help with if you're doing composting. Sounds like she can answer some questions. Let's see if I can get Bill back in here. Dr. Zimmerman, I guess I should say. Sorry. Here we go. His first name is Bill. Let's see here. Hey, Facebook. Am I missing any questions over here? Don't think so.
Uh-huh.
Hi, welcome back.
Thank you.
Everybody's online, so it's easy to get kicked off these days. That's okay. All right, so I'm trying to get a little bit of clarification on the, you may know the answer. What would you recommend using? Would you recommend using chicken to make compost?
Are we talking about dead chickens or chicken
That's, I
meat
told, okay,
or
here we go. Here's a clarification. By using the chicken to keep turning it while you repile it after it is fully turned by the chicken, and then allow the chicken to turn it a week later, and then repeat the process until fully composted. Oh, I guess basically using the chicken to do the turning.
I the size of the piles I'm thinking about, that would
A little bit challenging.
a little
Yeah.
tricky, and also to get it turned properly and to re-moisten it. I mean, that's a novel concept for sure, and but that's not one that I would try for myself on that. Does this person have any past experience?
I don't know. I think he's just starting or he's fairly new to it. I don't know for sure. But I was
Okay.
thinking the same thing. If you have a super high pile, I'm not sure how the chicken scratching around is going to compost it or do that quote unquote turning for you. So I think that would be a little bit challenging. So Turf 186, if you can explain to us how you're doing that, you might know something that we don't know yet. You might have a trick that we haven't picked up on yet. So here's something else that I thought about. You mentioned or alluded to mortality composting. What's that? Or did I say that?
Yes, I can speak for quite a while on this. I'll try to abbreviate it. Can you compost dead animals? Yes, you can. It takes longer. You have to be careful, and there are regulations in place, or there should be. In the United States, they're mostly by the states. USDA sort of gets into it, but not much. Each state will have their own, not only safety for the environment, but safety for human beings regulations on this to do it right and to kill all pathogens. You start out with the location, and this is pretty uniform everywhere in the states. If you want to do a composting site, you have to have it 200 feet away from your local nearest waterway, river, stream, whatnot. You have to have it 200 feet away from the nearest well. You have to have it 200 feet away from your nearest neighbor's house if you don't own it. And you have to have it away from any drainage swales that will drain down into waterways. So you have to be careful there. You want to try to control the leachate or the moisture that leaks out by having a level area. Many places that do a lot of mortality composting will do it on concrete, but if you have level hard ground, you can avoid that. And then you have to consider your options. But you have four options when you have a dead animal. You can sell it to a rendering service, you can bury it, you can burn it, or you can compost it. And of course, whenever possible, I would recommend composting it. But that does take special training and monitoring, so that is not for everybody on that. The every first step is building a base to put the dead animal on that. And you're going to have a big pad that's, say, 18 to 24 inches high. If you had a cow, you want it at least 5 feet by 7 feet. in dimensions and up to 2 feet high, 18 inches to 24 inches. And some absorption material in that base, but also you would have a lot of wood chips. Now, we're talking carcass options. Why are we putting wood chips on the bottom layer before we put the cow down? Remember, composting is composting, and you still need airflow. Airflow comes in through the bottom and goes up through the top. So you want something that will have pore space underneath. And so because the cooler air, relatively cooler air, comes in through the bottom, as it heats up with the decomposition and temperature rise, it goes out the top. And so just like a stovepipe. So you have that down, but on top of that initial pad, then you add an absorption layer of another 18 inches or so of something like sawdust or dry silage. But most people use something like sawdust, or you can get special bed packing material on this. And that is going to be essential because that will suck up all the fluids from the innards of your cow or goat or whatnot. And so you don't get leachate coming out the bottom. It's very important that you have plenty of room on the pad because you're going to be adding plenty of other bedding material and mostly absorption material around it. So once you have your cow on there, which you will basically use a front loader. In the States, you'd use a front loader or something to just mechanically lay them down. And then you start adding, if this was a single animal compost pile, then you would add material all around it. So you have about 2 feet to all around the sides and 2 feet on top. So it will be well covered because you have to control the odor. Because you get jumped all over legally, and you'll be very unpopular too if you don't control the odor of this. If you have smaller animals, you can also make the pile longer into a windrow, and you can add, even cows, add them side by side. Just make the base pad very long, make the absorption layer very long, and add cow, 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 cow. It's easier with calf, 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 or for goats for sure. If the animals are small enough, you can add a second layer. After you add 1.5 feet or so of absorptive material on top of the first layer of livestock, you can add a second dead animal or a row of dead animals on top. Your pile would just be bigger. But most of the time, your piles don't get over, say, 8 feet tall on that. If you're doing chickens, of course, then you can really go to town. You can have a lot of chickens because instead of 24 inches, think 12 inches all around, 12 inches for everything. And you can have 6 or 7 layers of a lot of chickens on that. Now, you want some space between the animals. You're not having animals that are crammed in tight to each other. You want every animal to have plenty of absorption material around it because the decomposition is going to occur between a high nitrogen material, which is the carcass, and a high carbon material, which is going to be the sawdust or silage or something. You need to have plenty of contact to have the bacteria come in and do the decomposition. Now, once it's all safe, how long are you going to wait? Well, you're going to wait, say, 5 months. You might check a little bit before then, but you won't do a turning until 5 months because you're going to have to add moisture again on it because where the cow is or other livestock, that's going to be plenty moist because of the body fluids. But you have all this padding around it, that's going to dry out. So after 5 months, you will turn it off, check the materials, and a lot of your smaller bones should be decomposed by then. But some of your larger bones won't decompose, but you'll see how everything is. And then you keep going for a few months, but make sure that the odor is controlled. Now, almost all of this is aerobic composting, just like we were doing with the manure. The aerobic composting isn't where your stink comes from. It's the inside of the cow with all the internal organs. All that decomposition is anaerobic. And that's where the really bad smell comes from, because it's going to spill out, and you'll find out very quickly if you have enough padding material around your animals or not. So be careful of that, and of course you'll be monitoring the temperature. Make sure you kill the pathogens on that, and so that will involve, at least if you have the thermometers, you'll be inserting thermometers. I say you can even do, if you have 3 foot thermometers, that's good. 2 foot thermometer will work. You shove it in several places at a 45-degree angle and monitor the temperature. But you want it at least 130, 140 degrees to know that the pathogens are being killed. Another question I will bring up, since I just mentioned pathogen, is can you compost a diseased animal?
Oh.
Should you compost a diseased animal? The answer is yes, but it depends on the disease.
Oh.
With poultry, there's a lot of diseases that doesn't matter, even avian flu and stuff. You can just go ahead and it's a virus. Compost away. It's no big deal as long as you do things right. And a variety of other diseases too. I would stop at encephalopathy in cows, right? If you have prions involved, if you have this mad cow disease with prions involved, the jury is still out on whether composting fixtures can kill the prions that cause mad cow disease. So in that case, I would say don't compost these, incinerate them instead. But yeah, but you can compost the diseased animals to some extent.
Very good. Wow. Mortality composting is pretty intense. Is anybody doing that? I don't think I'm going to try that, but if anybody is, I'd be interested to stay afar and watch and see how it works. So, but thank you very much for that information, because I actually had no idea that you could compost a dead animal. So that could probably be a whole business all in itself. You go around and collect everybody's dead animal. If you have lots of land and way out far away from everybody else and not close to water source, then you should be good. Or I should say running, whatever that term is. All right, very good, very good. Matthew Robb is asking, will the compost lose its nutrients? And this is, I don't think this is mortality composting, just regular compost. Will the compost lose its nutrients once bagged? And what kind of bags would you recommend? And does it need to be airtight?
No, all commercial compost bags aren't. No commercial compost bags are really airtight.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're making a lot of compost and it just sits around, yes, it will lose some of its value, say over about a year's time. So if you're making compost continuously, you have your preparation stages with your raw materials, you have your mixing station, you have your active composting, you have your curing station where it gets mature. All these are see different stacks. For example, I'm not thinking of a 3-bin system now. I'm thinking of like a facility on that. After your curing station, you would have an area which is basically just storage and recovery and storage station on that. And that you want to not have for a long time, or even put it inside a special storage room. You want to get that bagged up within a reasonable amount of time, because after about a year, it will have less nutrition than before on that. But if you bag it up and sell it, I'm sure it'll get bought and used before it goes too bad. Assuming the consumer doesn't buy it and let it sit around in his yard for a year or two on it.
Yeah, most people buy compost, use it right away. But was there, I'm not sure, did you mention a special bag? There's no particular bag that you want.
No, I always just think of the commercial plastic bags, I should say. With the bagging machines on that. They would provide a little more consistency of storage than burlap would. But then I might be speaking out of turn. What sort of bags do they use in Jamaica?
I don't know what they use commercially, but I do know, like for here, we just use the feed bags. The big feed bags, guys, we just put it in the feed bags and tie it up and send it on its way. And nobody has complained. So just that you can just reuse whatever bags you have. I don't think I don't for us so far the bags haven't really mattered. We just
Mhm.
use a few
No,
bags.
that's okay. Yeah.
Okay. So Turf1876 says, I do add dead rabbits and birds to my existing compost, and after a few months, it's all gone. Okay, I can work with a smaller animal. I just don't know if I can go up to a goat. Goat and above, I think, is bigger for me. So with a smaller animal, I can work with that. All right. So yeah, feedback's awesome. All right, guys, here's your chance to ask questions. Dr. Patrick, are you on? I think you liked that the mortality discussion. You probably did. You like all that kind of stuff. Right? Any other questions, guys? Facebook group. Julie has a question. If somebody can reach out to her and try to help her with her question, I can't see all of it, but if somebody can reach out to her, that would be awesome. Let's see. Anybody else? Any guys? Any other questions? This was really interesting, Dr. Zimmerman. Thank you very much. I know I learned a lot. The guy that was doing using the chicken, he is using. He said it's just a homestead level. So his using his chicken to turn it. Remember that question about using his chicken to turn it? He's just using it for
Mhm.
his personal
Yeah.
use. That's all. It's not a commercial level.
Okay.
All right. Am I missing anybody? Any other questions, guys? If not, I'm gonna tell. Oh, somebody was thinking, what about the smell? And it says, he said, it has no smell actually, and I do mostly vermicomposting, so the worms go crazy for it. Wow. So yeah, Turf
Hmm.
1876. I think I need to come get some training from you. But yeah, I'm actually surprised how this stuff really doesn't smell. I mean, just mount. I mean, you have to everything. Well, let's put it this way: at my location, it doesn't smell. It's really a matter of how your whole system is all set up. Because that's the first question everybody asks: doesn't it stink? I'm like, nope. If it did, I would have to make some changes very quickly. But it doesn't really smell. So it's interesting how nature works. I don't know if anybody else is like me, but I'm very amazed with nature. You know, all the new things and like, wow, if you do this and this happens, this is great. So, all right. Any other questions, guys? If not, I'm going to tell Dr. Zimmerman thank him very much. He did a phenomenal job. And we'll probably be reaching out to you, Dr. Zimmerman, if we have any additional questions down the road. But I do appreciate it. Okay, so I think we're getting some answers for Julie on the other side here. I do appreciate your time, sir, and coming to share this time with us. Our family, our little family or tribe here on IG Live, iGoat Live, is very faithful, and I know they all got a lot of information. So we do thank you for your time, and we are waiting for you to come visit. So let us know when you're coming down. We'll probably have to set up an in-person session so we can meet you. So thank you again. Do you have any closing comments for us before you go?
Oh, well, I just wanted to thank you as well for this opportunity to get introduced to more of Jamaica and also more about goats too, since I attended one of the training
Uh-huh.
sessions and I enjoyed this session very much.
Awesome. We did too. So thank you again. I'm looking to see. I don't see Marsha. I lost Marsha, but that's okay. We'll get her another weekend. We'll have her come on another day to tell us again about farmer to farmer. But guys, okay. So here's your challenge for this evening. I want everybody to report back, send us messages. Again, I know some people participated, but everybody didn't. So those of us that you aren't composting, I want you to tell me about your starting to compost. And you can start small, guys. It's always about starting small, make it manageable. And because once you start and you get the gist of it, you're like, oh, this is kind of cool, right? So those of you who are not composting, I want you to start composting. And those of you that are composting, what are you doing to start marketing it and selling it? And you know, because again, that's money we're sitting on. Like our picture said, your goat is pooping money. Can I say that online? All right, your goat is pooping money, so we can use all that, guys. All right, so everybody have a great evening. Stay safe, everybody, until we get all this COVID stuff over and done with. But anyway, we have to deal with it, but that's okay. You guys have a wonderful evening. We will be back next week, and we look forward to it. And thanks again, Dr. Zimmerman. You guys have a good night.
Thank you. Good
All right,
night.
thanks. Bye bye. Facebook Live. Thank you guys.